Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, Star Trek Discovery. It premiered on CBS proper, the actual network, not CBS All Access, a streaming service that's been on for the last couple of years, last week. And there was a lot of talk about the ratings. It got a not so stellar 1.68 million viewers. This was on some level a disappointment, and a lot of people, particularly Star Trek haters, which I could be included in that little group, were basically celebrating its failure and kind of neglecting to mention or point out, or at least leaving to the end of the video or article to point out the fact that it already did premiere in 2017 and it got 9.6 million viewers. Unlike the other Star Trek series, which got a 2-hour premiere, it just had one episode, which they screened. I'm not sure if they screened 2 episodes, the first 2 back to back, or if they just showed the first one. They showed the first one at least on CBS, and then you had to go over to streaming to watch the rest of the season. So it was really just there to try and get people in, and it didn't really work. But yeah, it got 9.6 million, which is not too bad. But yeah, I sort of thought I would compare that to some of the other Star Trek series because it made me think about it. Because like I said, some people weren't really taking into account the fact it already had premiered, and that kind of also puts it in a strange position because it premiered, but it wasn't the premiere of the series because the series wasn't being hosted on CBS. It was just like a teaser. And then this episode was actually the premiere for the first run of the first season on network television. So a lot of people hadn't seen it. A lot of people don't have CBS All Access. People are sort of hugely underestimating how many people have CBS All Access and have actually seen Discovery. And also it wasn't pirated a lot. I don't think the DVDs or Blu-rays sold that particularly well. So I don't think that many people have seen it, which does show that not that many people were interested in seeing it because they didn't watch it when it was for free. And how the rest of the season holds up, how they watch season 2 and season 3, which haven't been screened at all on network TV, will be a bit more interesting. But so far as the ratings, as I mentioned, Discovery got 9.6 million and 1.68 on the second encore screening. But when you look at the other series, it's kind of interesting. Star Trek The Next Generation, which premiered in first run syndication, not on a network, got 15.7 million. Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which also premiered in first run syndication, got 18.8 million. And Star Trek Voyager, which premiered and was also the premiere of the network itself, UPN, got 21.3 million. So as you can see, it was growing. Now, when we got to Enterprise on what was at that point kind of a failing UPN, a struggling UPN at least, it was cancelled, it was just taken apart and folded into the WB, which became the CW not long after. Enterprise got 12.5 million. That's still a lot more than Discovery. And none of those were on a real network. Next Gen and Deep Space Nine were both on first run syndication, and Voyager and Enterprise were both on what was essentially a cable network that was trying to be a legitimate network and failed. So trying to compare them, I mean, clearly they all did better than Discovery, which was on a mainstream network, a proper network, and still didn't even get 10 million people. So I don't think anyone can argue the fact that Discovery is the least popular series, the least successful series. Whether you want to argue it's good or bad, you cannot argue that it is the most popular. You may think personally that it's better than another Star Trek series if you want. You'd be wrong, but you can think that. But you can't think that it's more successful because it's just not. And what was interesting, now that's out of the way, was looking at some of the ratings. Because, I mean, I grew up watching this in live time, basically, you know. So I kind of know all this, but it was nice to take a little refresher. But like I said, Next Generation, first season, 15.7 million for the premiere. And I'm not going to go through every episode or everything, but each season pretty much. The first season, I don't want to do an average because there are some charts that have the averages for the season, but I just like to look at roughly how many they got. Usually the majority of the episodes were 9, 10, 11 million. Season 2, pretty much the same, 9, 10, 11 million. Season 3, 9, 10, 11 million. Season 4, we actually started to see it increase a bit more, 10, 11 and 12 million. And Season 5, again, 11, 12, 13 million. And by the time we got to Season 6, we're into an average of 12 and 13 million. Most of the episodes got 12 and 13 million million each. And Season 7 got 11 and 12 million, usually. And the final got 17.4 million. Now, Deep Space Nine, which premiered at the same time, while Next Gen was still running, but I think they overlapped by 2 years. It premiered in January 93. It didn't premiere in September, so they didn't have the two Star Trek premieres for each year clashing against each other. They had Discovery starting off later and having a slightly shorter season, actually, than Next Gen. They got, like I said, 18.8 million on their premiere, and they got 9, 11, 12 million for the first year. The second year, they got 8 and 9 million. The third year, they got 6, 7, 8 million. And the fifth year, they got 6 and 7 million. And then they kind of started to drop off a cliff with the fifth season, which was when they really started to get into the war. And they were down to... that can't be right. I just remember there were some contradicting... it should be about 5 or 6 million, because Season 6 was 5 to 6 million and Season 7 was 4 million, with the final episode getting 5.3 million. But there are some contradicting stats which I did find, which had Deep Space Nine doing better, and some other ones that had like an average for Star Trek as a whole, both series running each time, and they were way less than what they should have been as well. And that's supposedly Nelson ratings, so I need to get to the bottom of which of those are accurate and which aren't, but a lot of people refer to them. For a second I thought that wasn't running. God. Thought my camera had stopped. I don't edit out my mistakes, I like to leave them in there for a sense of reality and honesty. So Deep Space Nine started to go down, and it certainly dropped in Season 5 from some of the stats I was looking at earlier. So when they seriously got into the Dominion War, people tended to tune out a bit because they didn't watch Star Trek for war. And the ones who did weren't the majority of Star Trek fans. They were more generic science fiction fans who saw science fiction as just alien wars and just basic stuff, which is kind of the same people who kind of watched Discovery now, I think. Now, when we got to Voyager, like I said, it was 21.3 million, and its average for the first year was 5, 6, 7, 8 million, sort of. And the final episode for the year was actually 6.1 million. And Season 2 was usually 5 and 6 million, and that was 1995, 1996, because it actually premiered in January 1995, much like Deep Space Nine. It didn't start in September. I think that was because they didn't want the shows running against each other in the premiere sort of season and that. So Season 3, 4 and 5 million. Season 4, 3 to 4 million. And although I have contradictory stats as well, where they say that Scorpion got 10.3 million viewers, and the average sort of episodes were about 6 million, which is higher than what the Nelson ones are saying on Wikipedia and some of the other places. Now, I have checked them at a few different places. And Voyager Season 5, they got 3 to 4 million. Voyager Season 6, 3 million. And Voyager Season 7, 3 million. And the final episode got 5.5 million. Enterprise, like I said, premiered at 12.5 million on UPN in 2000. It was around the time of September 11, which the fact it survived in that climate, a lot of the shows for that season just got cancelled because just no one was watching anything except the news and the politics of the time. That first season, they got around 5, 6, 7 million views for each episode. Season 2, they were sitting around 4 or 5 million per episode. Season 3, 3 to 4 million. I think the Xindi War hurt it because, again, like Deep Space Nine, a lot of Star Trek fans weren't interested in war. That's not what they watched Star Trek for. And when we got into Season 4, although it started off pretty low at 2.89, it did come up as word of mouth got around that the show had improved, that they were finally doing some of the things to reference the original series and show things that were going to go into the original series like they were sort of promising from the beginning, which they kind of slacked with. They were probably going to do it later in the series, but when they got down to the last year, they figured they better do it all that year. They started to get high ratings, into the threes again, and the final episodes were both 3.8 episodes, because some people argue whether Terra Prime's the final or these are the Voyagers is actually the final of the series. But yep, and then we go up to Discovery, which had one premiere episode of 9.6. So, as you can see, Star Trek Discovery is indeed the lowest rated Star Trek premiere and probably the lowest rated Star Trek series so far. It has been a bit of a decline from the glory days of Next Gen, but part of that can be easily attributed to the TV landscape at the time. Star Trek Next Generation was the first drama show in first-run syndication, and then once they proved that could work, everyone else started doing it. So Next Gen was competing against more shows, and then they also had, for Discovery Deep Space Nine, they had more shows to compete with when they were premiering, so it was harder to get a foothold later with Voyager and Enterprise and that as well, although they did manage to push out some of the cable channels of the top 10 with the syndicated, first-run syndicated sort of scene at the time. And then UPN, of course, was a just complete disaster. They sacrificed Star Trek, basically, because they wanted to launch a network, and they tried to do this in the 70s with Star Trek Phase 2. They wanted to start a network, and they thought, what do we have? Well, Star Trek, that's doing huge. We'll just put that on there, and hopefully people will go to the network just to watch it. And the ones who don't will just miss out, and the show will miss out on views. And that's the same thing that happened with Voyager and Enterprise. Had they just kept it in first-run syndication, but that market was drying up a bit. But when that did dry up, they should have just put it on CBS. They did that with Supergirl. It rated far higher, and then they put it onto the CW, and it dropped to about a third of its views, and then just slowly disappeared. But some people say that was actually because of the writing and the themes of the show and the politics and all that. But I haven't seen season 2, 3, and 4 or 5 yet to actually be able to comment on that intelligently. So I'm going to go. I just want to sort of look at the numbers. I thought it was interesting. I'm going to do a proper breakdown of all the ratings at some point, especially with the original series, because there are some contradicting myths and sources, and I would like to do a little bit more look into that. And apologise for my voice, but I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think. Did the ratings surprise you? I think a lot of people sort of grew up, like I said, with them, so they kind of know how well the show did. Other people sort of sometimes are surprised how popular Star Trek was back in the day. But I'm going to go. Thanks, bye.